I just bought this cheap metal carport on Amazon. I'll show you how to assemble it and share everything I wish I knew before I started. So let's go check this thing out and get it assembled. It comes in 3 very heavy boxes, which does make me feel a little bit better about its potential durability and a little worse about trying to build this thing all by myself. I got it all unboxed to make sure all the parts were there and nothing was damaged. I was actually pretty impressed with the packaging. They use plywood around all the edges of the boxes and metal in the corners, but somehow every single roof panel got damaged anyway. The good news is they put protective plastic on each of the 50 roof panels, which has to be removed before installation, and that happens to be the #1 complaint I found online about this carport. I can confirm that is the worst part. Getting it started and off the edges is the hardest, but once you get going, if you pull slowly and at an angle, it does come off a little bit easier. They also include gloves for handling these panels that have extremely sharp edges. You can't really remove the plastic while wearing them though, and I did carelessly cut my finger. Anyway, after making sure I had all the parts and there was no more damage, I got to work assembling. Step 1. Just kidding. I'm actually gonna need those. I started by assembling the main supports for the roof. You can use the supplied wrench if you have an unlimited amount of free time, but I recommend using an impact. Carefully, of course. You have to build a total of 5 of these. Then you need to assemble 40 of these support braces. I got tired of working on the ground, so I set up a folding table and pretended like I was working on an assembly line. This was much more comfortable and faster. If you don't already have an impact or a drill, go get one. I can't even imagine how long it would take to do this with the tools they provide. And you definitely want to keep a hammer handy, because a lot of these will need some persuasion. If you were wondering how many 40 is, it's this many. But with all that out of the way, we can finally get to the actual assembly. This would be a lot faster and easier with 2 people, but you can do it on your own as long as you can balance a metal bar with your foot while screwing a nut and bolt together. That's 8 down and only 32 more to go. It was boring enough to install all of these, so I won't make you watch it. It was basically an hour of doing this. Once all 32 are loosely in place, you can go around and tighten everything up. I started in the middle and worked my way out. The instructions say to install the roof panels first, then tilt it up onto the legs. I'm not sure I'll be able to lift it, but I'm a real man and refuse to ask anyone for help, so we'll see how this goes. The included sheet metal screws come with these plastic washers already installed. Then they want you to use these metal and rubber ones. But if you use both, there doesn't look like there's enough thread to grab, so I spent the afternoon watching football while removing and installing these washers. It's just as boring as it looks, but at least the Patriots won. Start by installing the side panels. These use the sheet metal screws with the plastic washers, and they included a magnetic bit, which does make installing these a lot easier. There are 8 screws per panel, but the middle panels overlap. I chose to overlap my panels from front to back. I don't think it matters, just keep it the same so it looks consistent. The next step in the instructions is to install the roof panels. However, at this point, my concern about actually being able to lift this thing with all that extra weight got the better of me. So I hired my friends, Trash and Recycling, to help me lift it onto its legs. I honestly don't know if this way is better or worse, but to play it safe, my official advice is to follow the instructions and build this with at least 2 people. I went around and gave all the bolts a little, then installed the feet and the lower support bars. Hey, it's actually starting to look like a thing. Now I have to go back and do the roof, which is going to be much more difficult up in the air. There are 6 sheet metal screws with the metal rubber washers securing each panel to the supports. I installed them all loosely to get everything aligned properly, and then snug them all up. Each panel overlaps the last, and these little screws with the plastic washers secure them together. Each panel also requires multiple trips up and down the stepladder. Alright, I should have followed the instructions and just asked somebody for help. I didn't do that, it's too late now, but I have an idea. And that brilliant idea was to use my truck bed like scaffolding to finish the roof. As it turns out, this wasn't much better, and I still needed the stepladder. Every few panels, you need to install one of these brackets that will hold the ridge cap. I like the way this works. You can't really get over there to screw anything down, so the ridge cap just slides into the bracket, then the next bracket holds them in place. Getting it in the groove isn't that easy though. And you basically just repeat that process for the entire roof. Once the roof is done, you can install the front and rear edges, the end caps, and the side trim. I should have been more careful with these last few pieces of trim. You have to screw 3 pieces of metal together. The bottom one likes to push out if you don't line these up correctly, and I accidentally caught my finger with a screw trying to hold them together. After that, I used a tool to push them together, and that was much safer. I finished things up by installing this trim on the exposed sharp edges and these rubber caps on the bolts. They include these anchors for installing on a solid surface like concrete, and these plastic covers for the feet. I haven't decided how I'm going to anchor this, so I'm not installing them yet. And now it's done. So what do I wish I knew before I started? I would have done all the prep work ahead of time. With all that out of the way, I bet I could have finished this in a weekend by myself, or just one day with some help. And if you want my advice, have a second person help you with this. It will be way faster, easier, and safer. Speaking of faster and easier, a drill or impact should be required. Trying to do this with hand tools might take you a month. And finally, just be careful. I had a couple minor injuries that easily could have been avoided if I would just slow down a little bit. As for whether or not I would recommend this carport, for most people, yes, I would. I don't think you can beat the value for the price. Obviously, if you live somewhere with a lot of snow or strong winds, you're probably better off spending more on something a lot sturdier, but if you live in one of those places, you're probably not watching this video. I live in southern Massachusetts. The weather usually isn't that bad, so we'll see how this holds up. I'll update the pinned comment if this thing falls over. Please hit that like button if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you like these kind of projects, or you want to see what project car I end up throwing in here. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.